Good morning, everyone, and let me begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we gather today and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. Long before this place was called Logan Central, it was the land of the Yugambeh and Yagara-speaking peoples. I want to thank them for their wisdom, guidance and forethought over the last 60,000 years. Welcome to the special council meeting of the 24th of June 2024. I declare this meeting open at 10 a.m. and would like to advise meeting attendees that this meeting is being webcast and audio recorded. This special council meeting has been called to allow council to adopt the 2024-2025 operational plan and budget. Councillors, we do have media in the room, and as a result, a motion is now displayed on the screen to give approval for members of the media to record today's proceedings. Please note that should the meeting move into a closed session, members of the public and media in the gallery will be asked to leave until such time as the meeting resumes in public session. Is there a mover for this motion? Thank you, Councillor Bradley. Would someone like to second this motion? Thank you, Councillor Hall. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously. I note that Councillor St Ledger and Councillor Wilcox have requested a leave of absence from today's meeting. There is a motion on the screen. Would someone like to move that leave of absence? Thank you, Councillor Bannon, seconded by Councillor Murphy. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. We'll now move on to declarations of conflict of interest, and pursuant to section 150F of the Local Government Act 2009, adoption of the budget and operational plan are considered ordinary business matters. So councillors are not required to declare any conflicts of interest in relation to those matters, but you may do so now if you would like to. No? Excellent. We'll move on to council reports, and item 5.1 is the operational plan for 2024-25. I now refer to this plan, to the operational plan for 2024-25, and this is a public report with a confidential attachment. Do any councillors wish to move into closed session to discuss the confidential attachment related to this report? Excellent. I'll ask that someone move the. I'll move the operational plan 2024-25. Would someone like to second that? Thank you, Councillor Murphy. Councillors, there is a motion on the screen that has been moved and seconded. Would anyone like to speak to that motion? There being none, I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you. That has been carried unanimously with the exception of Councillor Bradley. How do you vote?
Against.
Thank you, Councillor Bradley. We'll now move on to the... Thank you. We'll now move on to the adoption of the budget for 2024-25. Before I move the motions, I'll ask if any councillors wish to move into confidential to discuss any of the confidential aspects of this report. No? Excellent. Councillors, this year we have a new and improved process for adopting the budget. There are 23 motions that I will move individually as we go through and call for councillors to vote on each motion so that the adoption of the budget is done in line with the most up-to-date legal advice. Councillors, if you would like to speak to these motions, you may, but noting that the release of confidential documents does not happen until the end of this process. I will give all councillors an opportunity to speak to the budget after we have adopted the budget and after myself and Councillor Murphy have given our budget speeches. If there are no further questions on that, I will commence with the moving of the recommendations. With recommendation 1, I move that I move the differential general rates and rating categories motion. That is seconded by Councillor Murphy. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously with the exception of Councillor Bradley. How do you vote?
Against.
Thank you, Councillor Bradley. I now move recommendation 2, the differential general rates. That is seconded by Councillor Murphy. Thank you, Councillor Murphy. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. The motion is carried. I now move recommendation 3, the environmental separate charge. That has been seconded by Councillor Murphy. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. I'll now move recommendation 4, the community services separate charge. That has been seconded by Councillor Murphy. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. I now move the volunteer fire brigade separate charge. That has been seconded by Councillor Bannon. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously with the exception of Councillor Bradley. How do you vote?
Against.
Thank you, Councillor Bradley. I now move recommendation 6, the sewer utility charges. That has been seconded by Councillor Bannon. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. I now move recommendation 7, the sewerage trade waste utility charges. That has been seconded by Councillor Murphy. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously. I now move recommendation 8, the water utility charges. That has been seconded by Councillor Bannon. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously. I now move the recommendation 9, the waste management utility charges. That has been seconded by Councillor Murphy. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously. I now move recommendation 10, the levy and payment charges, levies and payments. That has been seconded by Councillor Bannon. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously with the exception of Councillor Bradley. How do you vote? Yes, that was 10, levy and payment. That's okay, I understand.
Against.
Thank you, Councillor Bradley. I now move recommendation 11, which is interest. All those that has been seconded by Councillor Stemp. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously with the exception of Councillor Hall.
Against.
And Councillor Bradley, did you vote for that one? Sorry, I didn't see it. You did. Thank you, Councillor Bradley, and thank you, Councillor Hall. I now move on to recommendation 12, which is for the discount. Although that has been seconded by Councillor Murphy. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously with the exception of Councillor Bradley. How do you vote?
Against.
Thank you, Councillor Bradley. I now move recommendation 13, which is the sporting, recreational and community organisation concessions. That has been seconded by Councillor Bannon. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously. I now move on to recommendation 14, community organisation concessions. That has been seconded by Councillor Bannon. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. I now move on to recommendation 15, pensioner concessions. That has been seconded by Councillor Lane. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously with the exception of Councillor Bradley. How do you vote?
Against.
Thank you, Councillor Bradley. I now move on to recommendation 16, which is concessions for environmental land previously zoned as residential conservation. That has been seconded by Councillor Murphy. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. I now move on to recommendation 17, environment levy concessions. That has been seconded by Councillor Murphy. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously. I now move on to recommendation 18, hardship concessions. That has been seconded by Councillor Bannon. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you, councillors. I now move recommendation 19, farming land concessions. That has been seconded by Councillor Bannon. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously. I now move recommendation 20, cost recovery fees. That has been seconded by Councillor Murphy. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously. I now move to recommendation 21, commercial and other charges. That has been seconded by Councillor Bannon. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously with the exception of Councillor Hall. How do you vote?
Against.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. I now move on to recommendation 22, adoption of the budget. That has been seconded by Councillor Murphy. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously with the exception of Councillor Bradley. How do you vote?
Against.
Thank you, Councillor Bradley. I now move recommendation 23, release of confidential documents. That has been seconded by Councillor Bannon. All those in favour, please raise your hand. And that has been carried unanimously. Thank you very much, councillors. The budget has now been adopted. I will move to give my budget address, followed by Councillor Murphy, and I will then open the floor for discussion from councillors. Let's move this one off here. One more. Good morning, councillors, members of the gallery and members of the media who are here with us this morning. It seems everybody wants to live in Logan. People and businesses are moving here in droves. We are the youngest and most diverse city in the state, and now we are also the fastest growing. With that growth comes increased demands on infrastructure at a time when construction costs are soaring. That's why it's important for council to deliver a responsible budget for our city, and it starts with getting the basics right. This $1.18 billion budget focuses on the core business of local government, the critical services, infrastructure and facilities that our city needs. Council has allocated $135 million to roads and drainage capital works, as well as $1.8 million over 2 years for a new rapid response road pavement repair team with a primary focus on everybody's favourite, potholes. We want to make sure that Logan remains a city people are proud to call home, and we want to attract the kinds of investments that create high-value local jobs. The 2024-25 budget is not flashy. We're not splashing other people's cash around with big announcements. It's responsible. It means that we can invest in the infrastructure that our city needs. It sets the city on the right track, not just for today, but for the next 20 years. We need to break the short-term thinking of 4-year election cycles and start planning long-term. This council has the unique opportunity to build a city with and for our community. I want to see us protect what we love about Logan and transform the areas that still need work. And to do that, we need to listen to our residents, which is why there is $1.2 million over 2 years set aside for Transform Logan, a program designed to engage with residents so we can co-design the future of our city with the people who live here. Our community is experiencing the challenges of growth, and they are telling us loud and clear that infrastructure is the answer to that challenge. At the top of their list is vital infrastructure that they use every day, like roads, parks, sports, and community facilities. But to build more houses, we also need to make sure our water and sewer network is expanding as well. These are some of the most expensive assets that council builds. So we will have to carry more debt this year and across the long-term financial forecast than we ever have before. But this is good debt. We are borrowing up to $195 million this year to invest in our city's future. As we continue to grow, this number will rise because people want us to deliver infrastructure. They do not want us to make excuses. In these challenging times, this council has begun the important work of rates reform. This will be our framework to make sure that our rate system is fair. And with that in mind, council has kept the bottom line rate increase for 2024-2025 at 4.61%, which is below the CPI of 4.8%. This equates to a $139.10 per year increase based on an average annual water use of 155 kilolitres. For residential one properties on the minimum charge, that means it's an extra $2.68 per week. Rates reform has begun this year by removing the massive discounts some ratepayers were receiving, some of them receiving up to $97,000 a year. This saving has been given back to our residents by fixing the early payment discount to $120 a year for owner-occupiers in the residential one category. As we manage our city's finances with this responsible budget, we're also helping to relieve cost of living pressures on our seniors. Pensioners will see a 6% increase to their already generous discounts on rates and up to 10% discount on their waste fees. They'll now be getting some of the biggest discounts offered by any council across Southeast Queensland. Queensland is in the midst of a housing crisis, and Logan is doing the heavy lifting to make sure that people have places to live. We are the fastest growing council in the state because we're the only council that is hitting our density and land availability targets. And that does not happen by accident. We'll continue to do our part by helping to build Southeast Queensland out of this housing crisis. To support growth, we are investing in our development assessment services. This team is responsible for approvals, but importantly, they're also responsible for enforcement to make sure that developers are doing the right thing, especially for the environment and roadworks that impact our residents. Homelessness is a challenge that all cities face, and Logan is no different. The state government has primary responsibility for helping people to find housing and providing services to those who can't. But as the level of government that is closest to the community, we have an important role to play. There are 10 different branches within council which already work with people experiencing homelessness in Logan, and we're boosting their capacity to connect people who are in need to the services that the state government already provides. We're also improving safety on our streets and in our parks. The city's 1,400-strong safety camera network will gain 24 new mobile and covert cameras to address hotspots for hooning and other antisocial behaviour in parks and public places in Logan. This will also help to support the illegal dumping task force that is so popular in our city. Councillor Murphy will go into the details of the budget, but I just want to highlight spending that often gets overlooked. This year, we're investing $77 million in our city's parks, including $23 million in capital works, which is our third consecutive record spend on parks. People love parks, and we know that they want to continue to see them to improve. This includes big projects like Waterford West District Park, Alexander Clark Park at Logan Home, and the Flinders Sea Riverside Park in Logan Reserve. And across the city, we're allocating almost $5 million to replacing assets such as playground equipment, barbecues, shade sails, and water bubblers. Let me finish with a little bit of gratitude. I'd like to express my thanks for the frank and fearless advice that we've heard from our CEO, Darren Scott, his executive leadership team, and our wonderful finance staff. And I personally would like to give a huge shout out to the media team for working with me so closely on shaping the messaging around this budget. Repairing and aligning this budget to deliver critical infrastructure has been a huge shift, but a very important one. And the councillors are the ones who have led the charge on making that happen. To the councillors in this room and the ones that couldn't make it, you are doing your residents proud. Budget decisions are never easy, and this cohort has some of the biggest challenges a council has seen since amalgamation. I am confident that this group has the creativity, the drive, and the compassion to create a brighter future for our city. This is the first step. We've got a long journey ahead, but if we work together for our community, we will achieve great things for our city. The City of Logan is growing faster than any other city in Queensland. As a council, we need to get the basics right. Delivering a responsible budget means that we can ensure Logan remains a city that people are proud to call home. I now invite the Governance Chair, Councillor Karen Murphy, to share more details about this year's budget.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Firstly, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land in which we meet and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. Thank you, Mr Mayor, for your speech, and I'm honoured to stand beside you today to present the 2024-2025 budget. As a Special Budget Committee and Governance Chair, I wholeheartedly endorse the sentiments expressed in your speech, which reflect the hard work the Council is doing to support our city and its various communities in these challenging economic times. First and foremost, I would like to express my gratitude to my fellow councillors and to the council staff who have worked tirelessly behind the scenes, providing support and advice over the past several months to bring us to this point. Despite the constraints created by caretaker period, once the election in March was declared, we all quickly got down to work on this budget to ensure that our residents continue to receive the high-quality council services and facilities they rely on every day. Council is not immune to the current economic challenges, which are influenced by factors outside of our control. However, in framing this budget, we were determined to provide the services our community needs and expects Council to provide. I believe we are delivering a budget that is both responsible and forward-looking while taking measures to help shield our city and residents as most possible from the potential future economic environment. Let me highlight some of the points of this record $1.18 billion budget, the City of Logan, Queensland's fastest growing city. Our city is growing fast and so does our roads. It is growing by a length of 90 kilometres every year. As well as building new roads, our existing roads also need upgrading and maintaining. This budget allocates $135.1 million for capital works on roads and drainage. The upgrade of Logan Lee Road to 6 lanes from University Drive to the Pacific Highway, the upgrade of Chambers Flat Road from Mount Lindsay Highway to Kingsway. We have also allocated $43.5 million for road pavement rehabilitation and will form a new rapid response repair team with special focus on those potholes that you were talking about before, Mr Mayor, for a quick and safe response. The budget also allocates $31 million to upgrade and maintain the necessary services and infrastructures that our community needs and expects every day. This includes, we have 53 general community spaces, 17 community centres, 91 indoor and outdoor sports facilities provided by Council. In the coming year, we will spend $21.1 million for community facilities, including the completion of Stage 2 of the Beenleigh Aquatic Centre development, which is one of my favourites, and delivering the new Flagstone Community Centre. We will spend more than $5 million on sport and recreation facilities ahead of the year and planned a $12.1 million spend in 2025-26. Key projects over the next 12 months include the Everleigh Park Clubhouse at Greenbank, McKinnon Sport Park Clubhouse in Yarrabilba, and design work to upgrade clubhouses for Homestead Park Cricket and Shayla Park and Hamill Park Rugby League in Beenleigh. This budget also allocates funds to ensure Council continues to deliver community service obligations, which include $1.08 million in subsidies for utility charges for our community organisations. This is an increase of 15% on the previous year. We also include free tipping for our community-based groups. In a further boost to help our residents feel safer while in public places, we are expanding the city's 1,400-strong safety camera network with an extra 24 new mobile and covert cameras. We love our green spaces in our natural area in the City of Logan, and that's why we are leading the way across South East Queensland in partnering with residents and property owners to protect and enhance our environment. We now have more than 1,000 participants in our environmental conservation program, which includes Land for Wildlife and Habitat Connectors. In 2024-25, we will continue the programs to include the Logan and Albert River Vision, our bushland and trail maintenance community groups, and our extensive aquatic and environmental weed control. We will also continue to host our environmental events and activities, including the enormously popular and successful Logan Eco Action Festival and our Community Enviro Grants program. We will also do our part in the battle to stop the spread of red imported fire ants. We will form a special task force to combat and eradicate these pests that are on council property. This worthy and necessary environmental programs and incentives are funded through the Environmental Levy, which is spread across each quarter's rates notice. In 2024-25, the Environmental Levy will increase by $7 to $101.40 per year. These funds are to maintain and protect our important parts of our wonderful city. In conclusion, this record budget of $1.8 billion reflects our determination and commitment to making decisions that are right for our current times, and while also safeguarding our financial future of our city. We have achieved a balance across all priorities while maintaining a sound financial position for the next 12 months. Alongside the Mayor and my fellow councillors, I'm pleased to present the 2024-25 budget for Logan City Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murphy. I'll now give the opportunity to the CEO to speak briefly and then open the floor to councillors.
Thank you, Mayor. This budget is the culmination of about 6 months' worth of work, and I'd like to thank the council for the deep involvement it's had over that time. I'd especially like to thank the finance branch, in particular Marg Barnett, for their great work, as well as Robert Strachan and all of LT, and indeed all of the staff that have been involved in the preparation of this budget. I look forward to working with the council over the coming year to deliver the budget for the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. I'll now open the floor to councillors to speak. I'll begin with Division 3 because you're the general business division, this division. So would you like to speak, Councillor Russell?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Jackson?
No, thank you.
Councillor Hall?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Fraser? Councillor Herrmeyer?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Today I rise to talk about this budget's bad debt deal. Now, we've heard that this budget, the City Council is borrowing $194 million. Now, that is a necessary loan. that we should take out that's being spent on solid assets, things like roads, water, great assets that look good on our balance sheet and help the community. The issue is how we're going about borrowing that $194 million. Now, Section 4.14 in the debt policy outlines that we're expected to take the approach that we've taken for many years, long-term fixed-rate loans. Now, 4 years ago, we took that approach and we borrowed approximately $90 million at a 1% interest rate or about that. That was a great deal because we locked in a low interest rate, and if we took that $90 million and just put it in our bank, we would be generating millions of dollars that could be spent on the community. Over the past 4 years, interest rates have changed and the market has adjusted. Now that means that taking the same approach of long-term fixed-rate loans won't deliver the same outcomes as it did 4 years ago. Taking out that $190 million in the current market environment on basic calculations means that we should expect about a 5% interest rate. Taking it out on a 20-year loan locks in that interest rate over those 20 years. Now that means higher repayments affecting our budget, which means more money is spent on repayments and less money on our community. I believe that we should reform and diversify our debt policy. We should look at the smartest way to borrow that $190 million. Should we borrow some on 5-year loans, 10-year loans, 20-year loans? Get down, do some homework and figure out how we can make sure we reduce repayments and put more money into the community instead of paying our bankers. I look forward to working on this reform with the organisation and councillors over the next year. There's still some hope. We can always refinance this $190 million, but I believe that we need to reform the debt policy. It's urgent, as this term we're still scheduled to borrow an additional $350 million. So the quicker we do it, the better. I want to see money put back into parks, back into roads, back into fixing those potholes, instead of paying our high repayments, which are born out of this bad debt deal. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Herremeier, and I know you're passionate about this subject. The good news is we only borrow the money when we need it, so if you move quickly on the reforms you'd like to implement, you may be able to save those interest rates from ever being incurred. Councillor Bannon, Councillor Stemp.
Mr. Mayor, I was going to speak, but I think most things have been covered off in the other presentation, so thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stemp. Councillor Murphy. Councillor Bradley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will not speak.
Thank you, Councillor Bradley. Councillor Lane.
I love taking people's time up, so I'm definitely going to speak. Sit back, relax. It's going to be a bit of a long one. So since being sworn in April this year, the councillors in this room have been working on ways to lessen the impact of rising costs on the ratepayers in this year's budget. We recognise the cost of living has hit local residents hard, with the average increase in petrol costs for a family of about $25 a week. The average food bill, an extra $60 a week. For goodness sakes, a packet of 6 crumpets has actually gone from $2.35 up to $5. I mean, these are astounding increases that people are having to cover. A humble packet of chips has gone from $3.50 up to $8. So when we looked at our deliberations, we were very careful with the increases that were being proposed. Councillors didn't agree with each other on every single item in the budget. I opposed some 21 budget items, while others opposed items that I supported. Am I opposing this budget because of that? Absolutely not. I want to make it clear that I support this budget and the work done by the executive leadership team of councillors, our CEO, our executive leadership team and the managers. I think that we've looked at cutting the fat, delivering bang for buck and doing the best for our residents, and that's really important. Our most vulnerable residents, our pensioners and veterans, are receiving a reduction in their rates of up to $426 a year for the full rate, $213 for part pensioners. Those discounts equate to a 6% increase this year in the discounts for pensioners and veterans. We've made sure that they're as protected as possible. The reality for many homeowners in my division is that this budget sees an increase in the base rates for those people on the minimum rate of an extra $2.68 per week. Compared to rises in shopping baskets and petrol, residents should be assured that their hip pockets have been at the forefront of every expenditure decision in this budget. In my division, 51% of the properties are rentals. That's the highest percentage in the whole city. For those people in rental properties, the increase to the base rate is slightly larger at $5.63 per week. If your real estate agent or landlord hits you with a big increase because of council increases, they're mugs. They're absolute mugs. People have faced increases that have been just through greed. It's really unfair on them and they are struggling. So if someone says that they are raising your rent because of council's increases, call them on it. Now, renters are struggling, Mr Mayor, and landlords are taking advantage of a tight market to make a bigger profit using rising costs as their reason. Don't let them use this increase as one. I'm a landlord. My rent for my tenants hasn't increased since the start of COVID. I've absorbed costs because that's what you do. When you can afford to do it, you definitely do it. Like the household budget, the cost of doing business as a council has risen substantially. We haven't created the current price surges, but we sure have worked on ways to ensure residents' local money is spent with local businesses to keep local jobs in place. We look at procurement and make sure it's measured against reasonable costs, and we look at bang for buck on local small projects. Everyone is aware when it comes to quoting government, some businesses really take the mickey out of us and they just throw the prices up to unreasonable levels. Our CCTV camera costs have risen. They've almost tripled in price. So we actually looked at other options in this budget and we came up with deployable cameras and that passed in this budget. I'm so excited by that, Mr Mayor. I'm really genuinely excited by it. What this means for residents is that when trouble hits our streets in the form of hooning, drug dealers, illegal rubbish dumping, antisocial behaviour, roaming dogs, we'll have the capacity to place cameras to capture illegal activity and to commence prosecution or pass it on to police for them to follow up on. Council pays levies to the state government in the form of waste levies. These levies have more than doubled in the last few years, forcing us to pass along these costs to residents. We can't have rubbish dumped and absorb all of those costs. People are still illegally dumping furniture in our city, and I'm so proud that our city management team, our city lifestyle team, have actually worked hard to try and capture those people and prosecute them. There's been some good prosecutions that have happened. We've worked on how to lessen the impacts of rising prices in roads, with every part of the process rising significantly, in some cases almost doubling. We've trials on alternative road bases using recycled materials to save money in the future. We've turned our wastewater facilities into income-generating entities that have turned human waste into income-earning opportunities. Our first foray into selling this product as a fertiliser is underway, with partnerships forming, and the interest in the product is high. We are turning people's deposits into income. That's a great thing. This is recycling at its best, and nobody does it better than Logan. More than 50% of our employees in council are locals. They too are feeling the pinch of rising cost of living pressures and are currently undertaking negotiations on their wages in a new enterprise bargaining agreement. We had to budget for that. They deserve a pay rise. It's just a matter of how much it's going to be. Mr Mayor, I raised today to speak about the impact of our decisions on local families in my division. Just to be clear, Division 2 is one of only 4 divisions that return more than $20 million each year to the rates to the budget. Taking into consideration our residential, light and heavy industrial, Res A, B properties, commercial and other types, we contribute more to the coffers than many other divisions. But let's put that into perspective. Division 2's contributions equate to less than 2% of the $1.1 billion annual budget. We have 3 community centres, 7 sporting clubs with fields, 16 community spaces, including a pool, library, new youth centre and spaces for community, including halls, respite centre, kindy and seniors centre. We aren't missing out on services here in Division 2. In fact, we have the best services and the best groups in our facilities in the city. We've had millions spent over the last 4 years on local roads, fire hydrant replacements, replacement of major water infrastructure assets, renewal of public assets, including parks, centres and public spaces. More than $4 million has been spent on park improvements, fixing 50-year-old buildings. These aren't young buildings like me, they're ageing gracefully, but they need some maintenance and repair. Installing power-saving measures into our community centres has been a big saving for council when it comes to electricity prices. In 4 years, Division 2 has received flooding rain, had a registered tornado come through it, had bushfires on its border with Brisbane, and had its road network undermined by massive increases of vehicles on our local roads. And yet our rubbish is still collected, our parks are being slowly improved, our roads are drivable, water comes to the house and our waste is taken away with each flush. And we kept increases in our rates under CPI where we could. I think we're blessed here in Division 2. Our buildings might be old and our income's substantially less than other people from other divisions, but in other parts of the city, residents are less fortunate and council is having to spend humongous amounts of money to provide basic infrastructure for new residents moving into that area. Division 8 has seen the largest growth in the city in new houses, and Division 4 has had 3 schools come online in less than 6 years. That's massive growth, but with that growth comes the need for infrastructure. And sometimes we have to borrow to do that. I'm really looking forward to anything that you do on the borrowing stuff, Councillor Jeremiah. I think that's a great step. But the reality is, my division's doing okay, other divisions aren't, and we need to borrow. And we need to allocate that funding to those divisions that need it the most. Our road networks in emerging areas that require significant investment, which can't be funded through council's income. We've had to borrow and have been doing so many years prior to this cohort coming in as councillors. We're also managing debt and the repayments that result from that. In 4 years in my time as infrastructure chair, we've had to borrow to deliver the Cedar Grove wastewater treatment plant, servicing some 13,000 people from Flagstone area. We've upgraded the Logan wastewater treatment plant to cover infill into the older Logan suburbs. We've built the biochar plant, the gasification plant, the solar plant. We're building a new wastewater treatment plant at Chambers Flat to service new residents in Chambers Flat, Park Ridge and Logan Reserve. These are big ticket items, but nothing compared to the cost of delivering major road infrastructure into emerging areas. One division alone is more than $160 million in proposed expenditure to build roads needed to service future traffic, all of which will be borrowings. Mr Mayor, nothing in life is free, and the cost of delivering water to houses, waste taken away, parks updated and mowed, roads kept in decent driving conditions, facilities maintained or upgraded, and the delivery of new infrastructure to emerging areas of the city doesn't come cheap. Like the household budget, we have to live within our means, borrow responsibly, all the while making sure the children prosper, they feel safe, lead well-adjusted lives with us at the helm. I think this is a great budget. I think we have taken care with people's lives, we've taken into consideration their circumstances, but we can't control what's happening in the rest of the world. We can only control what's happening here in Logan, and I commend this budget, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lane. An excellent contribution. You can write my budget speech next year. The councillors, we now have a short video that we will play, and then we will table that and wrap the meeting up. Thank you very much.
The secret is out. The rest of the country has finally realised what we've known for years. There is nowhere like the City of Logan. Thousands have flocked to our region from across Australia and the globe to live, work and play in the past year alone, and many more are on the way, making us the fastest growing city in Queensland. All that growth comes with challenges. Our existing infrastructure is under pressure and needs to be improved. This $1 billion budget will build the roads, parks and community facilities that our city deserves. The budget has a focus on getting the basics right. We're being responsible during tough economic times and making our rate system fairer. We're also supporting new housing, giving cost of living relief to pensioners, improving our road network and laying the pipes needed to keep water flowing. Our parks, community and sports facilities keep getting better, and we're making sure we invest in enhancing our local environment. We continue to invest in our libraries and our waste management as well. These are the programs and facilities that Logan needs. This budget will mean we can deliver the roads, the parks and the services for our community to thrive.
Thank you very much, councillors. There is a motion on the screen to table the video. I've moved that motion. Is it seconded by Councillor Murphy? All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously. We have no late reports to consider. Then there being no further items to discuss, I now declare the special council meeting closed at 10:38. Thank you.